drink my tea.
So Dr. Rob, I'm going to put this in the answered so that we can start. So there have been a number of times, this is from Anonymous, that where I will call my SAPA partner while flooding. Maybe I discovered new info or he is in a location other than where he told me he would be, etc. Whoever is with him at the time will see me chewing my partner out, but not the behavior that led to this or led us there. One person in particular, his 16-year-old daughter, sees this and tries to convince him that I am the abusive one. She also tells many others outside of our family that I am abusive. He will sometimes ignore my calls, texts when with her, especially because of this. I get why, but it also sends my anxiety through the roof in that moment. I'm wanting to know your thoughts on reactive abuse, especially within the concept of personal accountability and how to address friends or family members who see the reaction, but not the behavior that triggered it, then claim that my SAPA, that I am the abusive one. So that's a lot, but I hear the issues with, it's one-sided and the SAPA is not saying, wait, there's way more to the story. But I'm also...
I'm going in and out because we had all this rain and my internet isn't perfect. So if you see me freeze, I'll be back. It seems to come back up. So
okay.
Are you ready to address this question? I'm sorry, I missed the last thing you said.
Yes. So can you see it? So
Yeah.
There's the question. Please respond.
Well, I think this is a challenge. It's not challenging. It's just a two-part question, meaning that to this partner, you have every reason to feel like you do. You have every reason to, all of it, to get angry, to be, as you call it, say, reactive, to read into things, true or not. Sometimes they are. And they may, and sometimes you just kind of grr and it comes out whether you like it or not. But the other side of it is it's not fair, or I hate to use the word appropriate, to have those issues come up in front of a child, or to play those issues out in front of someone who is not connected to the situation directly. So, you're sitting with a clergy member, have it out. You're sitting with a program person, have it out. You're sitting in therapy, have it out. You're even the two of you on a walk, do what you need to say. But this is a child, and and then sounds like there are others. And with all respect and caring, one of the things I say to my clients is that, you don't know this, Tammy, but I'm not really in it to help you guys. I help you guys as much as I can. But what I'm really in it for is to help your children and to stop this disorder and to have you be healthier parents for those of you who are. And for those of you who aren't, to help you love each other as it's meant to be. So I understand, I believe, I'm not you, but the depth of your feeling, the challenge of your feeling. I just wonder if you can work on ways to manage those feelings when you're in situations that they're just not healthy. It's healthy for you to get it out. It's healthy for you to have your feelings. It's healthy for you. So when you talk about reactive abuse, first of all, it depends on what you call abuse. I'm a little angry with you today, and sorry that's coming out in front of your kid is very different than you mofo, I want to kill you, and how could you, what is the reaction? And to what degree is it happening? And there's a third part in this, which is, yes, the things that are triggering you, it makes sense for them to trigger you. They should trigger you. He's not where he said he was going to be, or, he's, you get flooded because, he said something and you didn't think it was true. I mean, that is exactly where you need to be. But that's not what the question is here. And I really appreciate your asking it, because you know that something isn't right about this. And you're not sure how to manage what you're feeling is right, what you want to say is right, but the situation, it feels like you're having difficulty controlling and managing those feelings inside of you so that they can come out in ways that are productive. One of the things, I'll stop here, Tammy. One of the things that I have said to spouses for years is that, as angry as you are, as upset as you are, whatever it is, but you want to make sure it's productive. How is this use? In other words, if you do that in front of his daughter, then he has reason to get mad at you. And then, and appropriately so. She's 16 years old. Why are you tearing into me when my daughter is here? So you can't create situations that are simply not productive or counterproductive by having difficulty containing that very appropriate anger in places where it is not appropriate to express. So Tammy, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree, because I was like, this is, I get the reactions, but it's also backfiring. It's hurting you more.
Right.
Like, this is when people go, look, see, and it's not fair, it's not right. But look, see, look what she's doing, and
Right.
so I'm with Dr. Rob. What would be productive? You're flooded. Like, have a plan. It's going to happen. He's going to do this. So what are your healthy boundaries? Like, when he isn't where he says, what have you established so that you aren't, chasing him down? I don't know what's right for you, but it may be when you do these things, it destroys any trust that we are working to build. So therefore, I'm going to need to, you're going to need to sleep in the other room. You're going to need whatever it is that you have created for healthy boundaries for you, which are for you and your safety, emotional, physical, financial, spiritual safety, not punitive to him. You did this, so therefore, um, uh, you, no matter what you say or do to try to defend to family and friends, it won't matter, because if they have witnessed, some aspect of this anger. So what would be helpful, picking up the phone and calling your peer and going, you aren't going to believe what that, as Dr. Rob said, that mofo just did, like, here he is doing this again. I've got to try. Whatever you need to do, vent, journaling. There's so much research, and we did a webinar with Harriet Hunter, and Dr. Rob did on sex, love, and addiction, a podcast with her. She wrote a book based on her journal entries. It's part of my daily meditation is her book. It's good stuff, but you know what? It was her getting her thoughts and feelings out, and it helped her so much grow. But it's a safe place for you to vent. Dr. Rob just went on a sanity walk. Guess what? He's
Good.
feeling a little more refreshed than he would have had he not done that.
And
So
warmer.
what are some things that you can do? Like, in my recovery, there were times where I was like, I am angry and I'm going to rage if I don't, if I talk to anyone. I did some EMDR around that particular thing and the
Mhm.
trauma. And like, I'm not saying it's a miracle cure. It was for me, in that, because I had this one issue that kept coming up. And so doing some EMDR, like, I have not had that level of rage, again. And so what are some things you got? This is one of the things I've learned. I have no control over anyone else, what they do and not do. All I can control is my actions and
Except
reactions.
me.
Some days better than others. I nudge you. But I can't control you. But it's one of those things where, but I can make things worse for myself if
Right.
if I act in a way that doesn't, if I'm
Serve you.
coming across as a crazy raging person, guess what? People are going to think I'm a crazy raging person. They're
Right.
not going to understand all of and it isn't appropriate for him to go around telling me, yeah, I'm a sex addict, I'm acting out all over the place, and she has every reason to be upset. That doesn't serve you guys as a couple well either. So support for you. And if you don't have a qualified professional, email me, Tammy, TAMI, at Seeking Integrity, and let me know where you are located so that I can refer someone within your state if you're in the US. But I hope you're joining the drop-in groups on sex and relationship healing. I hope if you haven't already participated in the work group, there's a betrayed partner work group starting again in January, 6-week psychoeducation. It will help you establish those boundaries. It will help
Mhm.
support you. You can have a posse of people that can be the people that you text, the raging, all good. I had one woman, she was venting. Her husband was coming to treatment and she needed to vent. I said, don't send them to him, send them to me. I will be the container. I'm the safe place. But then she didn't have to spread them out. Now, I don't want 1,000 emails a day of like all the rages, but you know what? I guess I would take them, because if it helps you, email them to
Well,
me.
you
I'm
do a
happy to.
consultation and people can call
I
you
do
and
it.
work with
I
you a little
do
bit,
support sessions.
half
Yeah, 25 or
hours.
50-minute, support sessions that, like, their support. That's it. But, so
This is a
if we
perfect
can be,
situation though,
yeah,
where you
yes,
could,
we will support you. You have support. Like, because he isn't stepping up and going, wait, there's more to the story. I've heard her, you know, so,
well, and that
but
I do want to say something here also, Tammy, which is, excuse me, I'm writing things down, and while I'm doing this, writing this stuff down, So I'm going to say something that might be uncomfortable, but you are being abusive. And to act out in front of that child, and to it is abusive. It what it does is it does exactly the opposite of what you want to do. It takes the focus and puts it on you because you look like the crazy one, and you're not the crazy one. Everything is absolutely normal and healthy with what's going on inside of you. But when you do this, then everyone can say, oh, wow, look at her, or see, dad, I no wonder why she's angry all the time. I mean, and who's going to stand up? What 16-year-old is not going to stand up for her dad? So I really do think you're right to ask it, and I don't think you're wrong. I think you do look like the crazy person in this situation. And by the way, Tammy, I didn't see anything, and maybe I read it wrong, about going to therapy, about being in a support group, about like doing the betrayed partners group that we had. And so you're asking great questions, and we're always glad to answer them. But who, it's like Tammy said, who's your posse? Who do you have to call? Do you go to the Betrayed Partners group and get 3 women's names, and they can say, you can call me anytime. If you feel like raging, I'm going to listen to your call. Maybe you need to rage on the group and say, hey, blah, blah, blah. But I agree with you. You don't want to end up feeling like you've been the abuser, and you don't want others that you care about to perceive you as the problem. So, which is the right thing to ask, but I do think you're going to have to find ways to manage your reaction. Nothing wrong with your reaction, but it's coming out in unproductive ways.
Yes, funnel it to a productive way. Okay, next question. My husband is a porn addict and has been in recovery for the last year and a half. That's great. He had a sponsor who was really connected with. However, a few months ago, his sponsor and his wife went to a couples retreat, and it was decided to quit being a sponsor. Late 50s, married, and adult children. Since then, my husband is having a very difficult time trying to find a new sponsor. His therapist suggested trying other meetings, but they don't work for him as they are during the day. Any suggestions? Oh, I'm going to answer it. I'm going to
I
start with
see.
this. I'm
Go ahead, Tammy.
sorry, like they don't work for him because they are during the day. There are meetings all over the place. There's online meetings. There's some, we have drop-in groups, we've got a Sunday night drop-in group. We've got, all kinds of time, different days and times, and people can do it during their lunch hours. So I'm sorry, I'm not buying that aspect of it. And you can go to any meeting and raise your hand and go, I'm looking for a sponsor. And it can be another peer person, supporting. He's a year and a half. So presumably he's been through all 12 steps. How many people is he sponsoring? So, okay, now I'll shut up. Sorry.
So I just think he's lying. I mean, that's just basically
Yeah.
it. I've gone to meetings for almost 30 years, and I can tell you, if I want to go at midnight, I can find a meeting in France. I mean, I can find a meeting all over the world online now. And certainly, every evening, no matter where you are in the United States, there are meetings. I used to go to a midnight meeting, believe it or not, back in the day. So I do not believe that he cannot find one. And his therapist said, go try another meeting. And he said they don't work for him. I don't think he's in a position to say they don't work for him. I think he can say, I haven't found the right one yet. He can even say to you, would you help me find it? Or write Tammy a note, TMI at seekingintegrity.com. We will help you find a meeting at no cost. But I am concerned that, I mean, and people decide to not be a sponsor anymore. They go somewhere with their spouse and like, oh, we really need more time together. I want you to focus on me. Let's pull back from supporting each other people for a while. That's understandable. It is hard to ask for a sponsor, but you know what you just do? You raise your hand and you say, I want a sponsor. That's it. You go to a 12-step meeting and say, I want to go to I want a sponsor. You can even have a temporary sponsor, someone who's being your support for a month or so until you find the right person who feels good to you. But this is BS, and that's, I think BS walks. Everything you said, there's only one sentence in here that matters, which is he's not finding something that is already there. And that makes me wonder, is he really looking? By the way, Tammy, don't we have a porn addiction course that we teach somewhere?
We do. And I was thinking that next is like, I don't know, because she had added, he attends 2 meetings at night a week. But I was like, I don't hear, and he's done all 12 steps, and and he's been a sponsor and all. I mean, going to meetings twice a week is good. But he's been in recovery a year and a half. It's a 24/7 issue. So
Right.
like that, it's like that still feels a little on the light side. Now, if he's meeting with, other guys, peer support, if he's doing our drop-in groups, but on the Seeking Integrity, we have a porn addiction 101 that starts tomorrow. We have sex addiction 101. What is his 3-circle plan? Has he, thoroughly, worked that out with his sponsor? It's it's the work. Going to meetings is great. You know what? That's the community. That's what, shame reduction and all that. But it's doing the work. I've said this a bunch of times. Steps 4 through 9 are where the meat of the program is where we get rid of the toxic stuff and are able to move forward. So I'm in the, I send a link in the chat of, there's a whole list of a whole bunch of different 12 steps. And, there's SA, SAA, SLA, SPAA, PAA. I mean, I didn't even list them all. So there's a bunch. There's lots of letters. Check them out, but
And
for those,
I want to add.
I'm going to say one. Well, I'm going to say one more
Go
thing.
ahead,
It's
Tammy. You
like,
go. You go.
for those of us, if we want what they have and are willing to go to any length to get it, that's when things shift and change. So we have to be willing. And I hear, no, this didn't work for me. So sorry.
Well, no, it's okay. I mean, just, one of the things, just the way you described it, he's having a difficult time trying to find a new sponsor. I bet when he went online and wanted to find some porn, it wasn't so hard. He found the porn he wanted. He had the time to do it. So why can't he spend the time looking for something that works for him? The other thing I wanted to say to you is, this is sort of underlying this, but it feels like somehow you're having to check up on what he's doing and what he isn't doing, and he's reporting back to you about. He needs to find a sponsor. He doesn't need to come to you and say, I can't. That's not your problem. That's his problem. He needs to come to you and say, I was struggling not having someone and I have someone now. His job is to be reassuring to you with the truth, not come forward and ask you to fix. Now, I understand here's the thing. He didn't say, can you help me, or can you direct me, or can you support me, or can you point out where I can find someone? He said, I guess I just can't do it because this person's quit and it's hard to find them. That's not your problem. That is not, you don't even need to hear that. You need to hear, last week my sponsor dropped me, and so I picked one up this week, and I'm feeling positive about it. That's all you need to hear. So I don't know why he's turning to you for a problem in his 12-step program, which is his problem to work out and not yours. So yeah, I think you need to put it back on him and say, go find I don't want to say a mean word or bad word, Tammy, a sponsor.
Go find a new sponsor, and here's a list of resources. You can feel free to share the link that I put in the chat. Okay, next question. We're a couple, betrayed partner and spouse, SLA, is almost 6 months out of treatment and working in recovery, sponsor meetings, therapy. Concern is spouse is getting into shame and lashing out. What's the best way for us to handle this for each partner? We just started couples therapy, and betrayed partner is in individual therapy.
Well, I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. And it is for men who have cheated as well as men who are sex addicts, so they cheat a lot. But I do think that how do I say this? Okay, so Cami, let me help. The spouse is getting into shame. Maybe I'm not having this right.
No, the addict spouse, the spouse SLA. So it's the addict is getting into shame and lashing out.
Right. So this person does not, like many of us, this person thinks they're still in charge, and they still get to hear the thing they want to hear and not hear and if you say the wrong thing, they're going to get angry, and that's just so not okay. So the reason I brought up Out of the Doghouse is I created a book, which is my most popular book, by the way. And we also created a course for men to understand what betrayal trauma is in a woman and how to begin to heal it. We think just cut it out, or it's been 6 weeks, or here's some flowers, or just leave me alone, and we want the relationship to get better, and that ain't it. If we didn't have trouble with empathy, we wouldn't be addicts. Addicts, obviously have trouble with empathy because we can not feel how something's going to make you feel and go and do it anyway. So learning empathy is a long-term process, but learning how to treat someone, the right words to use, when to listen, when to shut up, and those can be learned. And so I really suggest that maybe he take the course, or maybe he read the book, or I think that and interesting, a lot of men come to us and they take Out of the Doghouse first thing. They come to the courses, and that's the first one they take. Do they need to take a sex addiction 101 course? Sure. Why do they take the Out of the Doghouse course? Because they're hoping to find a way to fix their problem with their spouse without having to really work on it. So they're taking a course about how to help with the betrayal, and basically to shut you up and show that they're working. But if they're not starting in a 101, the beginning of the process, they don't have a workbook, if they're not working, then forget out of the doghouse. They're not going to be, all they're trying to do is make you feel better. And by the way, this is all you spouses. If your husband or boyfriend or whatever said, oh, I took out of the doghouse and I took that course and it cost, $300 or whatever it is. And, I really learned a lot. It's like, well, that's nice, but when are you going to get into your problem and the addiction? And when are you going to stop worrying about how you can make me feel better and work on making you well? So, Tammy, you want to have some stuff? I know you do.
I did. I threw some things in the chat. So the Out of the Doghouse work group that Dr. Rob mentioned starts again in January. It's on, all of the work groups are 6-week psychoeducation. They're not therapy. They're not treatment. That's not the same as sending them to Seeking Integrity treatment program and getting the expert clinical help.
Because
So,
they don't
but
get me.
well, they don't get any of that, but it's psychoeducation that they don't get at regular therapy either. And there's a betrayed partner group that starts again in January. I also mentioned there's a podcast on Out of the Doghouse, and there's the book. All of those links are on the sexandrelationshiphealing.com site. You can find those resources, and that is a start. But Dr. Rob is right. And I know I hear all the time, partners are like, when is he going to start working on helping me? He can't until, like, Dr. Rob is like, right. They have to do the work that they need to do in order to show up without lying to you, because they can manipulate and gaslight. I mean, today I had another day of hearing stories and I'm just like, oh, shaking my head. But you know what? They're going to keep doing that until unless that, they start to change. Nothing changes if nothing changes. I wrote that to somebody, because they're not moving forward. So, so for you, I appreciate that you're here, but that means a higher level of care. He needs more help. I hear that he's doing therapy and stuff like that, but like a healthy boundary for you. What do you need to do? If he's
Yes.
lashing out, what do you need to do to go, that's not okay. I don't deserve to be treated like this. Let's talk about the issue, when you're able to calm down, and maybe it's 20 minutes from now or whatever. Does that make sense?
So Tammy, I without whether we're giving things away or we're charging for them, our intention is the same. And I don't honestly know, because I only wrote part of it. You've mentioned the betrayed partners group, and there's a number of partners who've been saying, what do I do here? How do I handle that? Or do I need to get, what about my anger? Or how do I set a boundary around these issues? Or tell them, and I really think this is useful because the guys are usually the ones who pile into the courses. The spouses will think, as I understand, I didn't create this problem. This isn't my problem. It's their problem. But the problem is you have to react to it and you have to live with it and you have to deal with it. And so you have your own problem, which is you're living with your worst nightmare. And so Tam, I was wondering if you could talk, because I really want you guys to hear it's not about fixing you or making you different or looking in your past like codependency. We don't do any of that stuff. We come from a
No,
codependent lens, which is about saying to you partners, by the way, if you're interested in codependence, the very theme is the fact that you love an addict and you've hung in there with us and you've supported us for all this time, despite the things we've done, is about love and caring and having hope. There's nothing wrong with you for staying with a broken person. Maybe you have hope and can see that maybe it's going to get better. And you may be the only one who's holding on to the hope. So in any case, Tammy, what does go on in the partners group? Because I know that we're not looking at their problem.
no. So it's for it, if you've been betrayed, if there's been infidelity. So it isn't even that he is a sex addict or she. It is about, you've been betrayed, you've been cheated on. So it's learn about betrayal trauma and how it's impacting you. Develop a basic understanding of how to set and maintain healthy relationship boundaries. Again, they're not punitive. You did this to me and you're terrible. It's like, for my safety, I value me enough. I'm going to set this healthy boundary because I need to have a safe place. That's what that is about. Learn healthy coping skills that can help you stay sane and productive. Go back to question number one. If you're struggling and raging out, the toxicity that is within you, like, it isn't good for you.
That's
Do you
right.
know how many betrayed partners I talk to that have physical health issues
Right.
as a result of the betrayal trauma, autoimmune, I mean, just like all kinds of stuff. So you don't deserve to have to deal with those things. So how do you learn to go, that's terrible, but that's him or her, and I'm going to take care of me. That's the only person you can take care of. So that's a place to start. You have a better understanding of and ability to manage your emotions, know what your role is and is not in your partner's recovery and healing process. So just like Dr. Rob talked about a moment ago. So
And I really appreciate the Hammy because we are often talking about what the addicts can do. And we do certainly talk about the partners going to groups, and we talk about the support groups, and we talk about getting therapy. But we really don't the issue, but the same kind of questions come up over and over again for partners, and it's not, they just don't have the answers and they're trying so hard. So to
how would they
understand,
ever?
well,
Yeah,
this isn't something you run into every day, but even
no.
if they're into therapy and support, there's just certain things, like the guys, you need to learn certain things. How do I set that boundary? How do I maintain that boundary? How do I deal with the fact that this person may be in recovery, but they're still a jerk? You know, I mean, there are so many pieces. I think that spouses need to learn how to negotiate. And again, it's not that you have a problem, it's that you're stuck with a problem. Oops. Well, I can't answer
Yes.
that right now. Sorry.
Okay. So
So anyway, I want to support the partners into getting some of what we're giving because I don't think I don't think there's any places that provide education online around partners issues. They're partners groups. But anyway, I'm dropping
yes.
out here.
So the next one is also, I wanted to say thank you for your time and wisdom and all the free and low cost help that you offer between you two and several other experts here. I don't know how I would have survived this far. You literally are saving lives, and I want you to know that. So I'm reading that. We do get a lot of people that thank us profusely for this work, and we are passionate about that. And like Dr. Rob said, we're both here. It's dinner time and we're both here because we care. And I honestly missed everybody last week, when we weren't here. So, so the next
And
one is, go ahead.
I just want to say one more thing. Like,
Yeah.
we are not we are both nonprofit and profit, meaning that my belief is that many of you will never make therapy, or many of you will not go to these for cost things because you don't have the money or you don't have the time, but you can go to one of the things I think have like 16 groups a week that are free for every population we work with. Go to them. This is what, if one or two people of those folks end up going to our treatment center, then it pays for all the free stuff we do. So, but we do.
Did I lose ya? I don't know if you can hear him or hello. Okay. So I'm going to keep going. Dr. Rob will come
Yeah,
back.
you came
Are you
back.
there?
It just goes
Okay.
and comes. It's the way it is. We got
Okay.
2 inches of rain
It's
last
you,
night.
but okay, yes, you needed it. Okay, so the next question is, hi, wanted you to know if you've heard of NVC, nonviolent communication. If we didn't cause it, can't cure this addiction, why do we have to be so nice? Ha ha ha. No, seriously. And it isn't about being nice. But I think it's living within your integrity. Like for me, when I had those moments that I shared about before, like I felt the rage. That isn't who I am. That isn't who I want to
Right.
be. So it isn't about being nice. It's about being my true, unauthentic self. I don't want to be that raging, person. I wanted to say the B word, but so it isn't about being nice. It's about what do you need to do to take care of you and live within your integrity. So, and I think most betrayed partners are really supportive, and if you're still with this person, it's because you still saw the good stuff and like you have hope for the future. So this is bad. I get it. But are there aspects? Can you have a container and a safe place to deal with those emotions? It isn't about being just nice.
Yeah, I wonder, by the way, why this person feels they need to be nice. And I think sometimes spouses feel, well, I need to be nice, otherwise they're going to go act out. Or if I don't keep things even at home, or if I don't, what if I get too angry? What if they just say, screw it, my spouse is so angry, I'm just going to go out there and do this. And I will say for you guys, and I say it over and over again, and for those of you who are not aware of it, to you spouses, there is nothing you have ever done to make us act out. There is nothing you are doing now that will make us act out. And there's nothing you will ever do to make us act out. I don't care if you gain 300 pounds, you scream at us all the time and take all our money. We can go for a walk. We can go talk to a friend. We can divorce you. I mean, there's a lot of choices. people in unhappy relationships or problematic relationships, the logical solution is not, well, I'm going to go cheat. That's an addict solution. That's an immature solution. You did this, and now I'm entitled to go do that, as opposed to, you did this and I don't like it, and we need to sit down and talk about it, or I need to do something in the world to make me feel better, but not this. And so I wanted to say to you spouses, because you do walk around understandably like you're on eggshells. You feel like in some way you can influence their acting out. An addict will act out if they drop a pencil. It really is not about you. It's about what's going on inside of us. We can have a fight with you and we can go for a walk and talk to a friend, or we can go feel entitled and act out with a sex worker, but it is never your fault. You never, ever set up circumstances that leave us acting out. We may want to act out, but I can go talk to Tammy, as Tammy would say, you can go call a friend or you can have a drink. But but that is your choice in that moment. What is the choice you make? And addicts, certainly, whether they realize it or not, they are making a choice. And they may not understand what their other choices are or how to deal with them. That's why we're here. But the choice, and by the way, sorry, they may also say to you, oh, well, if you were nicer to me, or if you just did this, or that's gaslighting, that's abusive. So if in any way the addicts make you feel like this is your fault or your responsibility, if you were just being nicer, or, our relationship hasn't gone well and that's why I'm doing this, you can say inside of you, thank you for sharing, and I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to have something to drink, because there's no way you're putting this on me. I don't care how I act. So I want to reinforce, I'm spending a lot of time with it, because I think spouse, and this is also part of the betrayed spouses course, it's so logical to believe that, especially when we're in grief. When my friend died, I thought, oh, I wish we talked about this, and I wish we talked about that. And it's sort of how it goes. So when someone is acting out and you're in grief, it's not unusual to think, oh, well, if I hadn't acted this way, or if I hadn't done that. And the truth is, it is not about you. And this person was probably struggling with this before they even met you. So please, spouses, be kind to yourselves. Understand that you're struggling with anger and disappointment and hurt, but nothing you can do will leave us out there except our own decision. I said that right, Tammy?
Yes. And even the lashing out, like I can't believe how often I hear about, well, he gets really mad. I'm using he and she pronouns, but he gets really mad if I do this. And so like you just don't bring it up. And I said, wow, that's really effective. He's managed to
Right.
manipulate the situation so that you don't even bring it up. So like
And
it's really good to push you away and keep you from saying anything authentic.
and he learned something.
And there goes Dr. Rob again. I think I think Los Angeles will dry out tomorrow, so hopefully things will come back.
I can
Are
see,
you
yeah,
there
it's going to
again?
be, but I'm
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
You're just
He
frozen when
learned
you come back.
something and then you cut out. So he learned
Okay.
something.
Right.
We're gonna keep moving on. Okay.
Well, no, I'll just say this to you spouses. If you make a threat, you need to keep it. Because what we addicts learn is, oh, well, they're going to say this, but they don't really mean it. And we learn from you. Oh, when they yell at us, I can make them feel bad about yelling at me. Oh, when they threaten this, they're not really going to do it. We are looking for excuses. And I will say to you, many of spouses have said to me, if this happens one more time, I'm leaving. That's fine. Make sure you leave. Because if you say to us, I'm leaving, and you don't, that gives us free reign to say, oh, well, they don't really mean it. It's no big deal. They won't leave the next time. And so be in this time, I would say, intentional about even your threats. Make sure you're saying things that really are true. Otherwise, you're teaching us that, you're just going to take it anyway. So
And
what
it
we got
isn't
so
even
many,
a
now
threat.
we have so many
Yeah,
questions.
I know we will, and I'll save them for next week too. But it isn't a threat; it's a boundary. It's like if you do this, like it doesn't have to be raging, and it can be like when you do this, I need to for my safety do this. But when I hear people going, oh, I have boundaries, but he crashes right through them. Well, then they're not a boundary because if there's not a
Right.
consequence that you're holding, then there's no wall in that wall. So and when people are crashing through them, then it's opportunity to go, I need to reevaluate my boundaries and I probably need to make them more firm, like
Right.
I need to be more protected, not let him, continue to, run over me. So,
But spouses need boundaries too, because you
yeah.
don't want to abuse in front of someone's daughter. You don't want to end up, completely hating yourself for, I mean, you also need ways to protect yourselves from what happens. And as Tammy says a lot, boundaries are not to make you do anything differently. They're to protect myself. Even if I don't like what
Yes.
I'm doing, I have to set a
Yeah.
boundary with myself. So
Yeah.
anyway, we have so many questions, Tammy.
Okay.
Let's try to
The
get to
next
more.
question is great. How does a man make amends to his kids when their childhood was spent with an SA dad that was anxious, quick to anger, blame others? They are both adults now, but they witness all of the crazy making behavior toward me growing up. I know you don't believe they should be told about his SA, and I agree, but I would love to know how to make amends to them and me for his treatment of me in front of them.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd be curious how old these kids are. It's a different thing if they're 24 than if they're 7. And I don't think that
No, it
that's
says
the,
adult. They're both adult now. So
okay.
they are both adults now.
Okay. So there's a couple of things. I say to adult children, they want to jump in, they want.
Hold that thought. He's coming back. It's a good question. We want the answer.
There we go.
Hello, Dr. M. Okay.
I got to go back to the question now.
Yes.
Hold on one second. Ba, 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 ba. What's the timeline? Note on that one.
604. How does a man make amends?
Okay, right.
Oh, 504
So,
for you. Sorry.
yes, I know. I see that. Okay, here it is. So I say this a lot to the men in treatment, especially the ones over a certain age, over 50 something, and this is not exactly right, but I want you to understand where I'm coming from. I will say to these men, you've had your life. You're an older person, you've been through your whole life, you've done, whatever you've done, and yeah, you're in middle age or whatever, but the main part of your growing, your loving, a lot of that has happened already, but your kids, they're just starting out and they don't need to be burdened with your issues at all. No child needs to get involved with taking care of their parent or fixing things for their parent or any of that kind of thing. So they have been affected, and that's, I think, the most important thing that they need to know. In fact, I'll just say from my childhood, my parents were, my mother was very mentally ill, very, very in and out of hospitals for many years, starting when I was 3, and very mentally ill. And my dad was just not there. There were all kinds of issues. And after they passed, I realized that the one thing they never did, and I just would give anything, is they never said, things are a little crazy here. And, I'm sorry that this happened, or we've had some trouble. I didn't even know my mother was mentally ill until I was 16 because no one told me why she kept going to the hospital and acting crazy. If they had just taken any responsibility for, I wish you'd had a better experience. I wish I'd been more mature when I was raising you. To me, what was important, and I think probably their kids too, is not that they know details or, what they need to know is they were right. It was crazy making, and you were not healthy, and you and your wife were acting in ways, you can blame yourself, whatever, that were not as healthy as they might have been, and they've been affected by that, and you are so, so, so very sorry. You can't fix their pain now, but you can support them, you can work on yourself, and if you guys want to go to therapy, I will pay for it. One of what I say to my clients when their kids are 7 is start paying for therapy, start saving for therapy. You can help them, you can support them in what they're dealing with in their lives right now by validating their experience, owning your part, making sure they have the help they need. And they don't need to know. I mean, unless you bring sex workers in the house and they watch you have sex, or you were looking at, unless they saw it directly, or even if they heard about it, they don't need to know anything more. Yes, dad had problems. Yes, dad struggled. Yes, it hurt your mom. Yes, it hurt you. I am so sorry. Acknowledge their reality. To me, that is the most important thing. You had a difficult childhood and I made it worse. And and thinking about it as I grow, I wish I had done it differently, but now at least I can tell you, and I'm so sorry. Just that, acknowledge them, and then say, if there's anything I can do for you, you want to be in therapy, you want some kind of go to a workshop, let me know and I will make that happen. You can't fix it. You can't go back to them being 7 years old and reparenting them. And by the way, I do want to say to the addicts, when I have a younger addict in treatment who's got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I think that I feel better about them than the ones who have 24-year-olds. Because in treatment, they do come to realize the harm that they caused in their families just by being absent and distracted and not supporting their spouse. And now their kid's 24. and they can't go back and fix. If you got a kid who's 3, there's a lot of things that you can do to make sure that they have a different life because you're sober. But when they're 23, they've had their developmental period and they've got whatever you left them. So, you can't fix it, but you can acknowledge it and make it easier for them. Tammy, I want to keep
Great
racing
answer.
through questions, if that's
I
okay,
know,
because we
but
got so
I'm going
many.
to read the next. I know I'm going to read the next one. It's just a comment. I want to thank Dr. Rob profusely for his podcasts. So on our website, you can find them: Sex, Love, and Addiction, and Generous Nature, and sharing his expertise and empathy. You are a bright lantern in what can be a very dark place for We Betrayed. So I needed to read that. Okay, so the next question is:
Wait, I
my
just want
essay
to say
husband.
one quick thing about that.
Okay.
One of the things that I've been able to do, and I hope that all of your addict partners can do, is I've turned my lemons into lemonade. I was just as screwed up in my behavior as any one of your spouses. I hurt people just like the addicts did, but I was able to make use of those behaviors, those challenges, and turn them into a way that I can help people, that I can look at the world differently. In other words, in thanking me, I want to tell you that you wouldn't have thanked me 40 years ago, or 35 years ago, but I was able to see that I didn't have to hate myself, that I could make use of some of the skills and some of what I felt to help others. And I do believe in everything in me, and everything I've researched says that one of the most important things that we can do as addicts is to do service. That one of the things that makes me feel, you don't have to thank me because I feel so good about myself for giving this. And you could use a few things to feel good about. So thank you, but thank you for being here because it helps. I know for
Mhm.
Tammy, we like to do something that helps other people. We can't correct what we did in the past, but we can pay forward the help that we got. So you're welcome.
So the next question is a challenge for me. My essay husband did his 4th polygraph. He does it every quarter, but he failed his poly this time. He claims that he did not lie and look really upset, but I don't trust him. This person states it is very rare that there are false positives. That's not true. He also became very defensive lately, so everything seems to add up. Would love to hear what you think of the poly.
Well, Tammy, you said you started by saying I have some thoughts or feelings about this. So why
Oh,
don't you
I did a
start?
bunch of research. I like this just makes me cringe. A polygraph. I did so much research, and you can email me. I would be happy to share it with you because I don't want to take a bunch of time because I could do a dissertation on this. But it's
Yes, you
like a
could.
coin toss. Like the people in the organization sent me stuff. I did more research, and I still come up with it's a coin toss. So yes, there are false positives. There are false negatives. Lots of false negatives. So you're basing your relationship on something that you might as well flip a coin. So if you are bent on doing a polygraph, anticipate that this will continue to happen. But do you see him now? I did hear he also becomes very defensive lately. I don't know if that was before the
Well, maybe
polygraph.
because he didn't pass the
That would be
polygraph.
more. Yeah, that's what I
Maybe
wonder
he's
about
defensive
because
because he didn't. So I just, I I've been doing this work for 25 or 30 years. And in the beginning, and through the first about 15 years, we never did polygraphs because, or we very rarely didn't. They were done when someone had lied so many times in so many ways, and the spouse was never ever going to trust again, and maybe we did them. But Tammy's right. We've had polygraphs since the 1940s. There's a reason that they're not admissible in court. If they were actually producing the facts, they're actually much more advanced ways of, eye movements and all that kind of stuff, which is very expensive. But here's what I hear most of all that worries me about you. You're not a wife anymore. You're a parole officer.
mm,
Are you really going to uh, use a forensic examination? Look, I know that when you work somewhere and you've used drugs and they want to keep you, they might do a drug test every couple of months or something like that. But this is not that. You can't test for lies in the same way you can test and see if there's cocaine in someone. It's just not the same. And I will say, and I want to say this to all of you because it's important to me. At what point can we redeem ourselves? At what point can trust will never be restored if you, it's like Tammy said, good luck with this because you're always going to come up with a false positive, or maybe he's lying, but you're not going to know about what. Or how about if he just was working on these things and you had an agreement that he would come to you and tell you the truth? Um, if he's not capable of being honest, that's a much bigger issue than, even if he masturbated last week. There's a much bigger issue about his unwillingness or not capability to be honest. So I think you've heard a thumbs down for both me and Tammy, and we have been involved in the training of therapists for years and years and years. It's only recently that the polygraphs have become popular. And honestly, it's been popularized by angry wives who want to get that answer. And they're going to, gosh darn it. And to me, it's not productive for you spouses. It's just not. So I can't say it enough times, and y'all are going to line up for polygraphs like penguins, in a row, and I can't help you with that. But what you're trying to prove, what you're trying to make sure is true, this is not the road, in my opinion.
Okay, so next question. My wife says that she's tired of the cycle that we are in, our cycle of moving closer together, working on things, then living a fairy tale land where she feels heard and understood by me. Then something happens and she is triggered and needs to move away from me. She calls this cycle of abuse, and she is in an abusive tethered with me. As such, she needs to move away from me for her safety. I understand that my behaviors of lies and deceit from my porn addiction were abusive, and I'm wondering if our current cycle is abusive.
I think you should take this course we've offered toward out called Out of the Doghouse, and you should also read the book. The book is really about, by the way, I make 12 cents when I sell a book, so the rest goes to the publisher. But this is really a book about what to anticipate when you have an angry partner and how to respond. I don't think, Tammy, do we have a number about how long they've been dealing with this?
No, and I do appreciate that I understand my behaviors of lies and deceit were abusive. And I appreciate you saying that, because so often I hear partners in particular going, he's an abuser, he's an offender, and all of that. And then you're stuck with this label. So I hear you doing that, but there's no fairy tale. So it feels like you guys are going to two rosy colored glasses, and then swinging the other way with the pendulum, rather than going, we live in this middle, and there's some bad stuff, but there's also some good stuff. So I'm a little concerned about the lens, is what I'm thinking. What about you?
Well, I hold on, let me pull this up again. Um, Sorry, I got so many things here. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. So in reading about this, whether it's my books or whoever's, it's pretty consistently, I say almost all the time, that spouses are on a roller coaster. I even think I have pictures of a roller coaster in my books. It is to be expected that a spouse is going to love you one day and hate you the next. We have a word for this too. We call it ambivalent love. When you look over at someone, you think, oh, that's so sweet. Look at them, the kids or whatever it is, or they're buying Christmas presents. And you look at them and you say, you ruined my life and I hate you. And how could I ever want to talk to you again? And what's crazy making for spouses is they go back and forth. And so they feel like they're crazy because, they can't land in one place. So what I hear is this is normal. This is healthy. This is not an abusive cycle, although I don't know how it is played out or how you act toward each other. But for spouses to feel hopeful one day and angry the next, and they feel really great, and then they see you looking in a magazine, it doesn't matter what it is, or something online, and they're like, oh my God, he's at it again. This is the world that you have created, which is this doubt and fear and suspicion in your spouse. And you have to expect that this is exactly how they're going to act. Oops.
You're still here. Can you say something again? And we lost him. Are you there? Are you there?
Now I am.
Okay.
What you're describing is what you should expect from a spouse. I
Even
think it's
fairy
very
tale land, because I don't
oh, well,
feel like it goes
people who
to
come out,
fairy
yeah,
tale
because
land.
some people come out of treatment and all they just start doing is having sex and everything's wonderful and everything's
Oh,
great. And
okay.
now I know what you did, and now they go on a honeymoon.
Okay.
And then,
Okay.
and
I
sometimes
gotcha.
spouses do this because you spouses, sometimes you'll bring us in with intimacy and love and sexuality, and because you want to feel better and you want to feel closer and you want to feel safe. Understandable. But then you think about what we did and you're like, why am I bringing them closer? Screw them. And so I
Okay.
think this is just part of everybody's process. It's just if it becomes abuse, if it gets into yelling and throwing things, and then it is, or saying things in front of kids, and then you need to work on how to deal with this. But I expect, and I think you should expect, that this is exactly the cycle that goes on. And this can go on, well, it'll go on a lot longer than any addict wants it to. But this is a 6 to 18 month cycle that hopefully starts out like this and gets less and less. but it's going to be like that. And what I say to spouses is this is your new normal. Being up here and down here, and sadly, and it isn't the one you want, but it is your reality, and every spouse goes through it. And your spouse, I hopefully, is in a support group so that they hear other spouses, because every spouse in this room says, God, sometimes I'm so angry, and other times, this is your process. So I would not call it abusive. I would call it predictable.
Okay. All right. Next question. I have the feeling my SA partner's CSAT thinks it's better for him to not be in a relationship. And since he knows that, he is constantly putting the focus on our small conflicts and makes them the reason for his struggles. We are not married and are a gay couple for 2 years living in a small family setting with his kids. My question is, does time and sexuality factor into therapist evaluation recommendations? I feel like no one in his life is advocating for us and that he is withdrawing more and more due to that. He has been doing great so far in terms of working on his sobriety, but he's starting to question our relationship more and more, which makes me very sad because I can't get rid of the feeling that this is a distraction and he is looking for reasons to act out.
Well, Tammy, you know what you're going to say. It's in the first sentence, right?
Well, yes, because I was like, yes, I thought of, I have a feeling my CSAT thinks it's better. And I don't know if you've had the conversation with his CSAT. Like that would be,
Yes.
because if your SA partner is going, oh, my CSAT thinks it's better, if you haven't heard it from the therapist directly, addicts lie, and so, and if he, like you said, he's looking for reasons to act, or like you're feeling like he's looking for reasons to act out. So, it feels like you need more
Yeah, and he may be
information.
blame shifting.
Yes.
I just think, if someone is being distant, it sets you on your toes. It makes you anxious. I agree with Tammy. It's funny because it's not funny. I train a lot of therapists. I mean, I've trained hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And so then we do a consultation group every Tuesday, which we have about 30 therapists who come in to sit with me, and we all answer questions and all of that. And what is always interesting to me is the therapists that I've worked with for 2 years, and they're training and they're learning and they're doing work. And one day they call me and say, Dr. Rob, you won't believe it. My client lied to me. I can't, they've been lying for a year and a half. And I'm like, well, of course they've been lying. That's what addicts do. And so, unless you have gone in there and they lie to us and they lie to you, or they're honest with us and we have a this and that, and then we think, well, I want to say it to my spouse that way. And if you think you can't go, I would be concerned if you couldn't go to that session. It's not that you're intruding on their therapy. It's that you say, one time. And by the way, we have a word for this as therapists. We call you collaterals, which means one person comes in, a family member, a loved one, and they give collateral information. That is very typical for therapy. You let us know something's on your mind, you come into the room, and why don't you find out whether that's what the therapist is saying? Why don't you find out? Because maybe he's just distancing and then justifying it by blaming the therapist. So we don't really know what's going on. Your therapist may well be this therapist may be abdicating for you. I don't know. There's not enough information here. And if he's questioning your, believe me, and try this, there's nothing any therapist could say to make me question my relationship. Not in the deep sense. I could question issues we have. I could change. No therapist, by the way, it is not our job to say, gee, what about this your spouse is doing? Or what about that? Our job is to say, how are you feeling? What's going on with you? Tell me, or to say, you got to do this, you got to do that. But I would want to go there and say, I'm getting this feeling that this is going on, and he is distancing himself. Can you help me understand this? Is there something do we need to do couples therapy? What is needed next? And if your spouse says, I don't want you in my therapy, I'd worry. And by the way, you can always call that therapist and say, hey, you may not be able to call me back. You may not, but let me tell you, this is going on and this is how I'm being treated. And, I just want you to know that may be helpful in your work. There are a lot of things you can do than believe the man you're with. And maybe he is acting out, not just looking for reasons. Maybe when we act out, we distance you. That's part of what we do. So there are too many questions here and not enough answers. Is there anything else you want to add, Tammy?
No, I'm good on that one. We're going to do one more question, then I'm going to capture the rest of them for next week. So I'm a PASA in recovery and now working on trauma. Do you have any advice, thoughts, or resources for healing from childhood sexual abuse, especially by a sibling?
Well, first of all, the first piece of advice I have is you have to stay in recovery. That's the most important piece. We
Mhm.
don't in what I consider good therapy is that I'm going to want to know about the trauma. I'm going to want to hear about it. I want to know what's gone on in your past. I want to understand how you got to my door, but I don't want to work on it because to work on trauma raises anxiety and we act out over anxiety. Now, I'm not saying you are doing this. I'm just saying what is important to me is that you have a really solid foundation in your recovery. And that is the most important thing. Otherwise, you can't look at the trauma because you're traumatizing yourself. So by acting out, um, there is a group called Incest Survivors Anonymous, ISA. I went for a while, and it is a 12-step program for people who have been abused by a spouse. I think that is very useful. I think, by the way, I know it sounds trite, but you can go on Google and type in spousal sexual abuse, and you're probably going to find some articles, some books. You might find support groups. There is a lot of stuff online that didn't used to exist when we weren't doing this. So, and Tammy, I bet if you write TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, I say TAMI because people spell it with a Y and all that. We have a
Yes.
lot of resources for this. And by the way, there are some great men's retreats and men's sexual abuse programs where guys get together and they go away for a weekend or they're meeting once in a while. Some of those male survivors groups. I think it's called male
Yes.
survivors. So there are a lot
Yes.
of options for you. And this is a great question. And I'm sorry that happened, by the way. I'm really, really
Yeah.
sorry.
No, yeah, I am too. So yeah, and regardless of what family member, it's just,
Oh,
it's horrible. So,
I will
um,
say one more thing about
okay.
that, which is my experience of siblings that abuse each other, that it most often happens in a home where children or a child is being neglected. And they turn to each other for comfort. Now there may be 7 kids, there may be 2, but they're turning to each other for comfort and support in ways that they're not getting it from the people who raised them. So that's one of the big contributors to sibling abuse is neglect. Um, yeah, yeah. Well,
Okay.
we should do
So
one
I've
more, even though
captured
we're
all of
hungry.
them. Oh, okay. All right. So
Just
then
one more. We'll do a holiday
okay.
one.
I don't know. Okay. So I'm moving this one. So, this is separated for 6 months. Husband has an affair partner for almost 3 years. I had found out in March of this year. He says they're just friends,
Oh,
but
please.
eventually I found out that was not true, and he has confided in his mother. Still not will be truthful with the whole situation. He has what I seem to think a sexual addiction to me stepping outside of the marriage and being with somebody else and fantasizes about this was back in 2014 and continued for years. Could this be due to his infidelity that he started therapy in October?
I'm not
So,
sure what the question is, Tammy. Can you
so,
help?
so the question is, I seem to, he has what I think is a sex addiction, um, but I don't get he's to me stepping outside the marriage and being, he has a sex addiction. To me, it's a sex addiction because he stepped
Right.
outside the marriage and being with somebody else. But and we don't know, because if he had an affair partner for 3 years, was he cheating with that person,
Was he
or
cheating
was
on
there
that
more?
person?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's
I
that's
mean,
more of it. But
most
yeah, kind of ick
there
that
are a
he told
lot
his
more.
mom.
Well, that's really icky and weird. I don't even want to get into
Hmm.
that part, but something is really not okay about that.
Hmm.
You don't want to talk, especially as an adult. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to talk to my mother about my sex life. I like Tammy very much, but I don't want her to know about it. That is not the place. So that's a little scary. But in any case, I do want to say that there are far more men who cheat and lie and have affairs for years and don't tell their spouse than there are sex addicts. So I can't say that because someone lied to you and had affairs for a long time if they're a sex addict. I can tell you that, don't we have an online test or evaluation?
Yes, on
Right.
our
Where
website,
is
Seeking
that?
Integrity, there is it. So it's on the seekingintegrity.com site under resources. There's a self-test for sex and porn addiction, and there's also one for substance use and sexual disorders. So if it's combined with chemical, there's a separate one, but both of them are free and they're just a quick scan. It's not the same as what we do for the guys that are coming into our residential program, but it is a good starting place.
And I want to add that on some level, it doesn't matter whether this person's a sex addict or not, because you've been cheated on, lied to for years. And so, by the way, you are welcome in the betrayed partners group. You're welcome in the betrayed partners work group, which is not just about sex addiction. It's about all partners who've been betrayed. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't think that you're in a situation to diagnose this person. I think what you need to focus on is your hurt, the abuse you've suffered, especially, is this still going on? We don't even know that, because I wouldn't be surprised. So I think you have a lot of self-care to do, less focus on him, more focus on what it's like to be someone who's been deeply betrayed. Because, and I hear this from a lot of spouses, what is he's doing this and he's doing that and she's doing this. And we can guess all day long, but what you can focus on is, how can I be at peace? How can I find, how can I find support? How can I reduce the anger and rage I feel? Um, ooh, I want to answer this question. 518. So,
Okay.
just really quick, this person says they have Parkinson's, and
Hmm.
one of the only drugs that we know directly causes compulsive sexual behavior are the drugs they give for Parkinson's. And we have had many calls, Tammy and I, as well as some of my professional friends, are like, oh, this person's a sex addict, they're doing this, they're doing that, and they have Parkinson's. It's like, oh, were they doing all this before they were on medication? Oftentimes they weren't, or they weren't doing it in the same way. So I would really want to look at that. What is that medication people take? I forget what it is, when they
I
have
forgot what
Parkinson's.
it is, but this person says, I don't surf the internet. So I think the sex addiction preceded his Parkinson's, because now he's not doing those things.
Well,
But he said he got his answer. But so continue on with the Parkinson's, because you're right. We do get
no, I
calls
just wanted to put
where
that out
people
there
are service.
because,
Yeah, yeah.
um, as far as the question, I've started to see a counselor. What kind of counselor? Are they trained? Do they know what they're doing? Are you going to 12-step meetings? There's so many pieces. What are you doing to support your recovery? There's a million things you might want to take. Sex Addiction 101. And by the way, I want to tell all of you folks that this is not unusual. I don't know, Tammy, maybe you can say, but maybe 15% of the people who come to our treatment center are over 60. It is not unusual for someone who later in life to say, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be this person. I want to be with my partner in peace when we get older. It isn't, I want to be at peace with myself. So just to say it to you, if it makes you feel better, 69 is not unusual for someone to try to get help. So I'm impressed with you. It would be so much easier to say, well, I'm 69. What's the big deal? It's important for you to have peace inside of you and to make peace with your partner. If you have one, yeah. So, where to go from here? We listed, there's support groups, direction groups, get to work, read a book, take a
Core
course,
group. Yep. Yeah.
and make sure the counselor you're seeing understands these issues, because you have to understand, and we'll stop here. Therapists are wonderful people. Many of them I know are good, a lot aren't, but this is a specialty. We don't sit there and say, how are you doing? Tell me about your day. How are you getting along? We are like, have you acted out? How are you doing for sobriety? What are you doing I mean, some of what Tammy and I do.
Hmm.
And then we're working at how people feel about that
Hmm.
and how they're working through it,
Hmm.
and how they, whether they struggle with that is our focus. And so if you're just seeing a counselor, I'm not sure that that is your best direction. Lord loves counselors. And if my friend died, I'd probably go see a therapist to talk about grief. But
Yes.
can't find a job, I'd go figure out why I can't finish school, or but this is not
Yes.
that. This is behavior. And when you have a behavior like drinking or sex addiction, you need a specialist in the kind of addiction they have. And that's what the CSATs are. By the way, I'm a CSAT, just to say it. I was one of the trainers for the original CSAT.
I was going to say
So
you were. I was just going to say you were. Yes, you were actually a facilitator. You were. Yes, he was
I'm a
very accomplished.
CAS.
But he's.
I'm a
Yeah.
CAS.
But he's very skilled. So one more thing, he does a one-time 2-hour expert consultation that can be very helpful for couples or individuals if you're not in a relationship, to identify the issues and guide next steps. Rather than floundering around, what do we do, or seeing a bunch of different therapists and not getting any traction, it can be a good, good place to start. So email me if you want more information.
And let me just quickly say what consults are. It's almost always couples. It's almost always a couple where you have an addict who is unwilling, not seeing the problem, not taking it seriously. And I have a partner who needs them to get it. And that's a lot of my job, is to help the addict understand what the spouse has gone through and what they need to heal the relationship and themselves. So I take a lot of reticent people and I kick them in the butt, or I provide them with direction and peace. So that's what I do in the consults.
So I'm going to just real quick on this one, because there was one that just got added. First time here, I'm an abuser, sex addict. What kind of counselor should I see? Since, if I'm a psychologist myself, first of all, I hate that you're labeled as an abuser. Your behavior was abusive. I completely understand that. But email me. But Dr. Rob just mentioned CSAT, Certified Sex Addiction Therapist. Some of them are great and I refer to, some of them I won't ever refer to. So if you want a specific referral, email me and tell me where you're located, and I will do my best to help you find somebody. I get no kickbacks. I want
Get
people to
thank
get the right
yous.
amount of help. But
And
yeah, we do get thank yous, but
and
and
I want to say
support.
something
So
about that real quick, which is there seems to be a movement in the field, and it's kind of following the polygraphs, where we are abusers, we are perpetrators, we're violating. That's not who we are. I believe in redemption. I believe in healing. I believe that broken people who want to get better can. And I don't believe that any addict was intentionally or unconsciously trying to victimize you. I think what we're doing is victimizing ourselves, and you end up being victimized, but it's not our intention to perpetrate you. We just don't see you at all, unfortunately. So, Tammy, dinner time?
yes. So somebody just asked, when is this going to be is this recording going to be posted? Yes, it'll be on the sexandrelationshiphealing.com site tomorrow, under the resource tab. So, okay, I've captured the rest of them. We're going to stop before we get more. See you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Rob. Bye.